In a quiet village nestled between rolling hills and whispering pines, there lived a man no woman could please. His name was Elias, and he was as much a mystery to the villagers as the wind that carried secrets through the trees. Tall and solemn, with eyes that seemed to hold the weight of 1,000 untold stories, Elias was a figure of fascination and frustration. Women in the village had tried, oh, how they had tried, to win his affection. But one by one, they all walked away, defeated by his unyielding reserve. The village buzzed with whispers. "What does he want?" they asked. "Why can't he just be happy?" But Elias never answered. He simply went about his days, tending to his small farm and keeping to himself. The villagers, though kind-hearted, couldn't help but gossip. They called him cold, unfeeling, even arrogant. But deep down, they wondered if there was more to his story, something hidden beneath the surface. And there was. Elias carried a secret, one so heavy it had shaped his entire life. It was a secret tied to a tragedy long buried, a love lost too soon, and a truth the village had never fully understood. But secrets, no matter how deeply buried, have a way of resurfacing. And when this one did, it would change everything. For now, though, Elias remained an enigma, a man no woman could please. But the arrival of a stranger was about to shake the village to its core, and reveal the shocking truth behind Elias's heartache. The village had always been a place of simple joys and quiet routines. Children played in the dusty streets, elders shared stories under the shade of ancient oaks, and life moved at a pace that felt timeless. But Elias was an outlier in this harmonious rhythm. His presence was like a shadow, always there, but never fully part of the light. The women who had tried to win his heart over the years had all failed. Some had brought him gifts from the market, others had cooked him lavish meals, and a few had even written him letters filled with poetic declarations of love. But Elias remained unmoved. He would thank them politely, sometimes even smile, but his heart stayed locked away. The villagers began to spin tales about him. "Perhaps he's cursed," one old woman said. "Or maybe he's just too proud to love anyone but himself," another added. But the truth was far more complicated than any of them could imagine. Years ago, Elias had been a different man. He had been young and full of life, his heart brimming with love for a woman named Lila. She was the kind of person who could light up a room with her laughter, her kindness touching everyone she met. Elias and Lila had been inseparable, their love the kind that felt destined to last a lifetime. But destiny can be cruel. One fateful evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Lila fell ill. It started as a simple fever, but it quickly grew worse. The village healer did everything she could, but it was no use. Within days, Lila was gone. Elias was shattered. The man who had once been so full of life, became a ghost of his former self. He withdrew from the world, burying his grief deep within him. The villagers, though sympathetic, didn't know how to help him. Over time, they stopped trying. But Lila's death was only the beginning of the mystery. Unbeknownst to Elias, there were whispers about the night Lila fell ill, about strange happenings in the village, and about a secret that had been buried along with her. Elias, consumed by his grief, never noticed the sideways glances or the hushed conversations. But the truth was there, waiting to be uncovered. And then, one day, a stranger arrived in the village. Her name was Mara, and she was unlike anyone Elias had ever met. She didn't try to win his affection or change him. Instead, she listened. She listened to his silence, his pain, and the unspoken words that hung heavy in the air between them. Elias didn't know it yet, but Mara's arrival would change everything. She carried with her a truth that would unravel the village's fragile peace and force Elias to confront the past he had tried so hard to forget. But for now, the village remained oblivious, and Elias continued to carry his secret, a man no woman could please. Mara arrived in the village on a crisp autumn morning, her presence as unexpected as a sudden storm. She was a widow, the villagers soon learned, and had come to start anew after losing her husband to illness. With her warm smile and gentle demeanor, she quickly won over the hearts of the villagers. But it was her kindness toward Elias that set tongues wagging. Elias, for his part, was wary. He had grown accustomed to the village's attempts to fix him, and he expected Mara to be no different. But she surprised him. She didn't bring him gifts or try to coax him into conversation. Instead, she simply existed near him, offering small gestures of kindness, a freshly baked loaf of bread left on his doorstep, a quiet good morning as they passed in the street. At first, Elias resisted. He had built walls around his heart, and he wasn't ready to let anyone in. But Mara was patient. She seemed to understand his pain in a way no one else did. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, Elias began to soften. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Mara found Elias sitting by the river, staring at the water as if it held the answers to his unspoken questions. She sat beside him, not speaking, just sharing the silence. After a long while, Elias finally broke the quiet. "Why are you here?" he asked, his voice rough with emotion. Mara looked at him, her eyes filled with a quiet understanding. "Because I know what it's like to lose someone you love," she said. "And because I think you've been alone for too long." Her words struck a chord deep within Elias. For the first time in years, he felt seen. But even as he began to open up to Mara, he couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to her story than she was letting on. The villagers, too, were growing suspicious. They had watched Mara's gentle persistence with Elias, and while some admired her patience, others whispered that she was meddling in matters best left alone. "She's hiding something," one woman said. "Mark my words, she's not here by chance." As the days turned into weeks, Mara's presence began to stir up old memories in the village. People who had long buried their guilt over Lila's death found themselves haunted by her ghost. And then, one night, the truth began to surface. It started with a letter. Mara found it tucked away in an old chest she had brought with her from her previous home. The letter was addressed to Elias, written in a familiar hand, Lila's. Mara hesitated before showing it to him, knowing it would reopen old wounds. But she also knew that Elias deserved the truth. When she finally handed him the letter, Elias's hands trembled as he unfolded it. The words on the page were like a dagger to his heart. "My dearest Elias," the letter began. "If you're reading this, it means I'm gone. I never wanted to leave you, but I had no choice. There are things you don't know, things I couldn't tell you. Please, don't blame yourself. And when the time is right, know that Mara will help you find the truth." Elias looked up at Mara, his eyes filled with a mixture of anger and confusion. "What is this?" he demanded. "What do you know about Lila?" Mara took a deep breath, her own eyes glistening with tears. "I was her friend," she said softly. "And I made her a promise, to tell you the truth when the time was right." Elias felt the ground shift beneath him. The woman he had loved, the woman he had thought he knew, had been keeping secrets from him. And now, those secrets were about to come to light. But Mara's arrival was no coincidence. She had come to the village for a reason, and that reason was tied to a truth far darker than Elias could have imagined. The letter from Lila was a key that unlocked a door Elias had kept sealed for years. As he read and reread her words, his mind raced with questions. What had she been hiding? Why had she felt she couldn't tell him? And what role did Mara play in all of this? Mara, sensing his turmoil, gently guided him to a quiet spot under the old oak tree at the edge of the village. The air was thick with tension as Elias turned to her, his voice trembling. "Tell me everything," he said. "I need to know." Mara nodded, her expression solemn. "Lila and I grew up together," she began. "We were like sisters. But when she met you, she changed. She was happier than I'd ever seen her. You were her world, Elias. But there were forces at work that neither of you could control." Elias frowned. "What do you mean?" Mara hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "The village elders, they didn't approve of your relationship. They thought Lila was too good for you, that you would hold her back. They pressured her to leave you, but she refused. That's when they took matters into their own hands." Elias's heart pounded in his chest. What are you saying? Mara's voice dropped to a whisper. Lila didn't die of natural causes, Elias. She was poisoned. The words hit Elias like a thunderclap. He staggered back, his mind reeling. Poisoned? By who? Mara's eyes filled with tears. By the elders. They thought they were protecting the village, protecting Lila from a future they believed would bring her nothing but pain. But they were wrong. And when Lila found out what they had done, it was too late. She made me promise to tell you the truth, but only when the time was right. Elias felt a surge of anger unlike anything he had ever known. The people he had lived among, the people he had trusted, had taken the love of his life from him. And they had done it in cold blood. But Mara wasn't finished. There's more, she said. The elders didn't act alone. They were influenced by someone else, someone who had their own reasons for wanting Lila gone. Elias's eyes narrowed. Who? Mara took a deep breath. Your brother. The revelation struck Elias like a blow. His brother, Jonas, had always been jealous of Elias's relationship with Lila. Jonas had loved her too, though he had never admitted it. In his twisted jealousy, he had conspired with the elders to eliminate the one person who stood in his way. Elias felt the weight of the truth, crushing him. The brother he had grown up with, the brother he had trusted, had betrayed him in the worst possible way. As the reality of the situation sank in, Elias's grief turned to rage. He stormed through the village, confronting the elders one by one. At first, they denied everything, but under the weight of Elias's fury, their defenses crumbled. The village was thrown into chaos. Families turned against each other, old alliances were shattered, and the once peaceful community was torn apart by guilt and anger. But amidst the turmoil, Elias found an unexpected ally in Mara. She stood by him, offering comfort and support as he grappled with the enormity of what had happened. Together, they began to piece together the full story, uncovering secrets that had been buried for years. Yet, even as the truth came to light, Elias couldn't shake the feeling that there was still more to uncover. The elders and Jonas had been part of the conspiracy, but were they the only ones? And what had really happened to Lila in her final moments? As the village teetered on the brink of collapse, Elias knew one thing for certain: the past could no longer be ignored. The time had come to face it, no matter how painful the truth might be. The village was never the same after the truth came out. Families who had lived side by side for generations now looked at each other with suspicion and resentment. The elders, once respected figures of authority, were shunned and ostracized. Jonas, Elias's brother, fled the village in shame, leaving behind a legacy of betrayal that would haunt him for the rest of his days. For Elias, the revelation was both a burden and a release. The weight of Lila's death had defined his life for so long, and now, knowing the truth, he felt a strange sense of closure. But it was a painful kind of peace, one that came with the knowledge that the people he had trusted had betrayed him in the worst possible way. Mara stayed by his side through it all. Her quiet strength and unwavering support became a lifeline for Elias as he navigated the storm of emotions that followed the revelations. Together, they began to rebuild, not just their lives, but the village itself. It wasn't easy. The wounds ran deep, and trust was hard to come by. But Elias and Mara worked tirelessly to bring the community back together. They organized gatherings, encouraged open dialogue, and reminded the villagers of the values that had once united them. Slowly but surely, the village began to heal. One evening, as the sun set over the hills, Elias and Mara sat by the river where Lila's letter had first been read. The water sparkled in the fading light, a reminder of the beauty that still existed in the world. "Do you think she would be proud of us?" Elias asked, his voice soft. Mara smiled. "I think she would be. You've done what she always hoped you would, you've found the strength to move forward." Elias nodded, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "It's strange," he said. "For so long, I thought holding on to the past was the only way to honor her. But now I see that letting go is what she would have wanted." Mara reached for his hand, her touch warm and reassuring. Lila loved you, Elias. And she wanted you to be happy. That's why she sent me here, not to reopen old wounds, but to help you find peace. Elias turned to her, his eyes filled with gratitude. I don't know what I would have done without you, Mara. You've given me something I thought I'd lost forever, hope. Mara's smile deepened. And you've given me a reason to believe in second chances. As the stars began to appear in the night sky, Elias felt a sense of calm settle over him. The pain of the past would always be a part of him, but it no longer defined him. He had found a way to honor Lila's memory without letting it consume him. And in Mara, he had found a new kind of love, one built on trust, understanding, and the shared journey of healing. The village, too, began to find its way back to peace. The elders, though never fully forgiven, were allowed to live out their days in quiet reflection. Families slowly mended their broken bonds, and the village once again became a place of warmth and community. Elias and Mara became symbols of resilience and forgiveness. Their story was a reminder that even in the face of betrayal and loss, it was possible to find light in the darkness. And as they stood together, hand in hand, they knew that the future was theirs to shape. The man no woman could please had finally found peace, not in forgetting, but in forgiving. And in doing so, he had given the village a gift far greater than any secret, the power to heal. And so, the man no woman could please found peace, not in forgetting, but in forgiving.